3 warships dropped out of the dark sky above our colony, and my husband did not even look up from his tea. I am Vienne, third daughter of the Emerald Throne of Calith, and I remember every second of that morning because it was the morning I learned the truth about the man I had married. The alarms tore through the dome before I could even set down my cup. Red light washed over the walls. My guards rushed in, shouting that unknown ships had crossed our early warning line, that a channel was already open demanding surrender. I stood, my hands shaking, ready to call every soldier we had. Nathan simply finished his tea, stood up, and said, "Calm as still water. Let's go see what they want." That calmness should have warned me. It did not. Not yet. We reached the command deck as the enemy commander's voice filled the room. He called himself Cade Voss, leader of the Marne Compact Fleet, and he wasted no time on courtesy. He wanted our colony's mining rights, rights that belonged to both my people and the humans living here under a shared treaty. My marriage to Nathan had sealed that treaty forever, which made us, in his eyes, an obstacle worth removing. "Hand over administration of this colony," Voss said, "or watch your dome lose pressure one section at a time." I felt fear climb up my throat. 6 centuries of my family ruling this region, and never once had we faced a threat this direct. I looked at Nathan, expecting him to look afraid too. Instead, he was studying the tactical display with the quiet focus of someone reading a weather report. "Vienne," he said softly, "how much do you actually know about where humans came from before the Coalition found us?" The question startled me. "You came from Earth. You joined the Coalition a century ago. Everyone knows that." "That's what everyone knows," he said. "Nobody ever asks what came before." There was no time to answer, because the enemy fleet fired a warning shot across our outer shield, close enough to rattle the floor beneath us. My royal guard scrambled into position, their spears and ceremonial armor gleaming uselessly under the emergency lighting. I realized, with a cold drop in my stomach, that none of them had ever fought a real battle. None of us had. Nathan turned to the old communication console in the corner, one I had never seen used before. He typed in a frequency so old the system asked him to confirm it twice. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Calling home," he said. Voices answered almost instantly. Not soldiers in uniform, not officers with ranks. Just names. Grace from the reactor deck. Oliver from the mining tunnels. Lucy from the greenhouse dome. Peter from the water reclamation station. Ordinary people. The same people I had seen every day carrying tools and vegetables and tired smiles. And yet the moment Nathan's voice reached them, something in their tone changed completely. They stopped sounding tired. They started sounding ready. "This colony has survived dust storms that swallowed buildings whole," Nathan told me, while the crews mobilized behind him. "It survived a reactor failure that should have killed everyone in this dome. It survived 2 years without supply ships during the early settlement, when we grew our own food from nothing and fixed our own machines with scraps. We didn't have your medicine, your shields, your fleets. We only had each other, and we learned to make each other enough." I watched, stunned, as ordinary colonists transformed our maintenance corridors into something else entirely. Mining lasers, meant only for cutting rock, were repositioned toward the outer hull with practiced speed. Water pipes were rerouted to become emergency coolant lines. None of it looked like weaponry. It looked like the same quiet competence I had always associated with Nathan. Except now I understood it wasn't only his. It belonged to all of them. "You told me you worked construction before we met," I said, still trying to piece it together as alarms blared around us. "You never mentioned any of this. You never asked," he said gently, not as an accusation, simply as a fact. "Nobody in the Coalition ever does. Your people found us, right after we had finally learned to be kind to each other again. That's the only version of us anyone from the stars has ever seen." Voss's voice returned over the main channel, impatient now, warning that our silence would be taken as refusal. Nathan walked to the console and answered him directly for the first time. "Commander Voss," he said, "you're targeting a colony you assume is soft because it flies a royal banner. I'd reconsider that assumption before you commit to this." Voss laughed, the sound sharp with contempt. "Humans," he said, "the puppy species. I was told you built pretty gardens and fixed pipelines. I did not come here for a negotiation." "Then you should have done a little more research," Nathan replied, and something in his voice made even my own guards go still. What happened over the next several minutes was nothing like the battles described in Calith history, the grand clashes between armored fleets that filled our old songs. This was quieter, and somehow far more unsettling. Nathan and his team did not attack. They adapted. Every attempt Voss made to disable our shields was met, within moments, by a countermeasure built from spare parts and old knowledge that should not have existed on a primitive colony. Every attempt to force a boarding party through our docking bay was met by colonists who sealed corridors, redirected power, and outmaneuvered soldiers meant to intimidate farmers and engineers. I stood beside Nathan the entire time, watching numbers shift on the display, watching Voss's confidence crumble in real time. He had expected an easy target. Instead, he was facing people who had once survived with nothing at all, and who now had a reason worth protecting. "Where did you learn to do this?" I finally asked him, my voice barely above a whisper. He kept his eyes on the display. "Before the Coalition found Earth, I spent time with something called the Reclamation Corps. We went into places humans had ruined ourselves, generations before I was born, and we made them livable again. No one was coming to help us. We had to become the help ourselves." I thought of every quiet moment I had spent with him, every time he calmly solved a problem that seemed impossible to me, every time I had assumed it was simply his personality. I understood now that his calm was not personality. It was the result of a lifetime of learning to remain steady when nothing else was. Within 11 long minutes, Voss's fleet retreated, their systems overwhelmed not by superior firepower, but by superior resourcefulness. No lives were lost, no violence beyond a few disabled systems, and a badly bruised ego on the commander's side. It was, in its own strange way, one of the gentlest victories I had ever witnessed, and also one of the most powerful. Afterward, Nathan and I sat together on the observation deck, watching the enemy ships shrink into distant lights. My hands were still trembling, though the danger had passed. "Why didn't you ever tell me any of this?" I asked again, needing a real answer this time. "Because you loved the version of me that laughed with you, and fixed your processors, and never once treated you differently for being royalty," he said. "I didn't want you to see me as something to be afraid of." "I'm not afraid of you," I told him honestly. "I think I finally understand you." He smiled, tired but warm. Most people in the Coalition see humans as new arrivals, harmless and eager to please. They forget that gentleness and strength often come from the same place. We learned kindness the same way we learned to survive, by needing each other completely, with nothing else to depend on. When we returned to Calith, my mother, who had once called humans the gentle little species behind closed doors, said nothing at all about what had happened. But she looked at Nathan differently after that day, with a kind of respect she had never shown before, and she never used that phrase again. I had chosen Nathan because he made me laugh, because he treated me like a person rather than a princess, because he never once made me feel fragile. I had not understood, until the Day 3 warships tested our colony and found it far tougher than expected, that his gentleness and his strength were never separate things. They were the same thing, shaped by a history few outsiders had ever bothered to ask about. I married a man I believed I understood completely. It took an invading fleet, a very old radio frequency, and 11 quiet minutes for me to realize how much more there truly was to him, and how lucky I was to have found it.